Welcome to the Grow Your Business and Grow Your Wealth podcast with Gary Heldt. Gary is an expert in helping business owners put together a plan that will provide a better future for their businesses, themselves, and their families. On the podcast, Gary interviews other professionals who share his vision, and together they share secrets and strategies any business owner can use to build a better financial foundation for your business and your life.
Hey, welcome back to the podcast. This week, my guest is Kim Daly, and she is a nationally recognized franchise consultant, business coach, and creator of the Daly Coach podcast. With more than 20 years of experience helping entrepreneurs evaluate, launch, and scale franchise businesses, she's known for turning curiosity into confident ownership. Welcome, Kim.
Thank you, Gary. Thanks for the introduction.
So, before you kind of got into the whole franchise thing, give us your background.
Okay. So, and the question we always ask each other in franchising is, how did franchising find you? Because nobody wakes up and goes, oh yeah, my dream is to own a franchise, right? Except for the Daly boys. My boys are like, we're going to own franchises because they see what franchising has afforded their lives. But I was actually on my way to medical school. I answered a classified ad in the newspaper for a summer job. It was a telemarketing job that happened to be for a franchise company. I got inside this company, and within a few days, they offered me a 1-year, position. Of course, my father was like, "Don't do it. You're never going to go to med school." Right. I'm like, "Dad, my whole life is about med school." But the idea of like doing something different and taking a break from studying and all the intensity, I'm like, this kind of sounds good. Make some money. Well, of course, my dad was right. My dad's always right. And I'm happy to say that. But anyway, I found this industry of people helping people, of entrepreneurs. Every day, people are waking up to live their own dreams. And I started to dream my own dream. So I did what everybody does, mostly, when they think about business ownership. Here I was in franchising, but I was like, I'm going to go start my own company and be an entrepreneur. So I started my own company during the .com kind of like beginning of the internet being a thing for business tool. And I moved forward for about 5 years. I was really successful, but the whole internet.com thing was more about chasing money than it was about influencing people. And my sweet spot is helping people, influencing people, inspiring people, not chasing money. So I started looking at like, what am I going to do? And that's when I returned back to my franchising friends and thought, what should I do? What company should I invest in? And this whole franchise consulting thing was just becoming a legit thing back in 2002, which is when I became a franchise consultant. And I said, I'll try that. That sounds like I could be good at that. I just had no idea of what that one decision would do to completely change the trajectory of my life. Gary, franchising has completely changed my life. It's what makes me so passionate about helping other people, because if it changed my life, it can change your life too.
Right. You talk about franchising and so forth. What are some of the misconceptions that there are when it comes to franchising?
Yep. So there's a lot of misconceptions. Even as people own a franchise, there are misconceptions. But to the part that I am introduced to the candidate, a lot of times people think, number one, franchising is only food and retail. I'm an executive. I'm not interested in owning a Jersey Mike, so I dismiss franchising. Right. Then they hear Kim Daly say, I'm the number one franchise consultant in the country. I've placed more people into franchise businesses than any other consultant over the last 20 years of my life, and you will have to beg me to show you food. And then they're like, oh, like what else is out there besides food? So that's one. I think another misconception is you need $1 million. So like, the bigger the brand, the more money you need. No, you don't need $1 million. And the bigger the brand, that is totally untrue. The bigger the big brands don't necessarily cost more. What costs more is if you're building out a location. That's what costs more. And then I think another common misconception is that, I don't have any experience. I don't have an MBA. Am I even qualified? You absolutely don't need an MBA. You absolutely don't need any experience. Listen, That's why you're investing in a franchise so that you're in business for yourself, but not by yourself, right? There's people there to train you and support you, to give you the business plan. And yes, you're going to have to be open to growth. You have to personally
Sure.
grow and professionally grow in order to receive the financial abundance you're trying to call in. But you're not doing it out there on an island. You're doing it in a collective, collaborative community with people who their income, the royalty stream, is directly tied to your success. So they're in it
Right.
for you. Yeah. I think those are probably the three biggest misconceptions, but trust me, Gary, there's a lot more.
Oh, I'm sure. I'm sure. What are some of the common mistakes that you see people make when they get into franchising?
Yeah. I think the number one most common mistake in all of business ownership is that people invest in businesses they can't comfortably afford, right? So you get sucked into the dream of I have to own, X. When you come to me as the franchise consultant, I'm going to say, let's let go of X. Let's look at your goals and your dreams. Why do you want to invest in this business? What's the vision? Because at the end of the day, Gary, nobody really wants the business. That's a pain in the butt. What they want are the outcomes, right?
Right.
The time freedom, the money freedom, the control, right? So I want to get you focused on those outcomes. And then with my 23 years of relationship and knowledge, let me be the expert who brings the most efficient franchise vehicle to help drive you to those personal, professional, and financial goals. And it kind of loosens up the thought of it has to be fitness or it has to be this. Like it doesn't. At the end of the day, you're going to be passionate about the business, but more importantly, what you're really going to be passionate about is what the business affords you. Because you can buy a business you're so passionate about, but if you never get to the time freedom, the money freedom, the
Right.
feeling of control, you're going to hate the business. So there's a lot of psychology, I think, that goes into the selection of the right franchise, and that's where I enter. So I think that's one of the biggest problems in franchising, but in business ownership, people just get sucked in emotionally and they invest way out over their financial skis. And then they don't have enough working capital. They don't have enough nervous system control when the bank account goes low to be able to sustain that and the business fails. That's probably the biggest one. But what else? I don't know. Does that make you think of something
Yep.
else?
Yeah, yeah. Well, it certainly does. Um, Lots of times I know I've had people come to me and say, "Oh, I want to start a business." And then you talk to them and it's like, "Okay, well, what kind of business do you want to start?" And they don't know. So when people are coming to you, do they usually have an idea of what kind of the kind of industry they want to get into, or are they coming to you, "Hey, I just want to start something."
Both. Yeah.
Okay.
But what's so fun is that a lot of times the industry or even the specific brand that someone may bring to me when they first meet me does not end up being the one they invest in. So through my process, I'm going to help like wipe the slate clean and really teach people what's most important in the selection of the right business. So in a franchise, it's less about passion for the widget. When you're an entrepreneur, you need to be passionate about the widget because in many times you are the inventor. You're
Right.
telling the story of this widget for the first time. And if you're not passionate about it, nobody's going to buy it, right? But in a
Right.
franchise, you're buying down the learning curve of starting a business by partnering yourself with people who've already figured out how to make money. So, what you're passionate about are the tools and the systems and the technology and the ease with which you can enter, learn, and get to profitability. So, yeah, do I want you to invest in an industry that you're like, if you say, hey, Kim, I'm not a mean person, but I just don't really want to be around like dying people or elderly people. I don't want you investing in senior care, right? Like I
True.
want you to have I want you to have a general liking or even a love or you can see the potential future potential opportunity in the industry, but most certainly you do not have to be like the user of the product. You don't like, do you know how many men I help get into beauty brands? And here's why, Gary, because they come to me and they, especially the analytical guys, and they're like, I want the most recession resistant industry you have. And I'm like, okay, so you mean beauty?
Hmm.
And then they're like, what? And I'm like, do you have a wife, daughters, sisters,
Right.
mom? Like, how often do they go to the spa or spend money on makeup or hair product? And are we ever going to stop? Is a pandemic going to stop us? No. Is a recession going to stop us? No. And then they start thinking logically, right? Because they're coming at it from their own perspective. And then I say things like this, and they're like, oh. And next thing you know, they're investing in some sort of day spa or a hair removal company, like a waxing company or something like that. That they're laughing all the way, to wire that franchise fee, thinking, I can't believe I'm going to do this. But
Right.
they can see how they can leverage maybe their analytical skills or their marketing skills or their people skills to recruit a team, put the team in place, and they get to work on the business rather than in the business, which is ultimately how scale is created. And that's what franchising was really created for, the scale potential, right? Where the owner can be that CEO who's managing systems and teams and technology and people, and therefore not buying themselves a job where they're in on the ground floor and they get stuck by the number of hours in a day. There's no leverage in that.
Right. Right. So if somebody doesn't necessarily find you, but after today, everybody will find you,
Thank you.
um, and they're looking at thinking about a franchise, and again, they're not sure what they want to do. What are some of the things that they should be looking at when it comes to a franchise if they should be investing in them? Because there's a lot of them out there that are really, really good and a lot of them that aren't so good. So
Yeah.
what should we be looking for if that's what we want to get into?
Yeah, it's a very true statement, but please just call me because my service is free. So, the number one thing you're going to hear me say today, please take this away. 97% of all franchisors out there are not worth your hard-earned life savings. They
Hmm.
might be one day, but they're probably not today. And therein lies, well, what is that? Why? And how do I get to the top 3%? Well, you get to the top ones through an experienced franchise consultant who's been around the block for 20 years, right? Like I know who's who and what's what. There's a lot of franchisors that will come up to me at a convention and be like, they know my reputation, they know the caliber of the candidates that I serve up to franchisors. And they say, how do I get a Kim Daly lead? And I think, we're never going to get a Kim Daly lead, right? So what you're looking for, most importantly, is a franchise system that's represented by people who not only know the industry that the business is in, but a leadership team that has built another franchise before. We need an experienced franchise development and operation team inside the C-suite of the company. Why? Because once you move from the business you're in to the franchise industry, you're in two different companies. The franchise industry has a way about it. And if you're good at, let's say your business is fitness and you know fitness and you know why people work out and you know how to get them to come to your gym and how to get them to come back. But if you've never taken somebody's life savings and watch them invest it in your dream and then had to coach and manage their nervous system through their own growth journey, this business of franchising is a whole big deal. And you're highly responsible, right? So most franchisors think, oh, like, their family and friends are like, you should franchise this. And then they go pay an attorney and they franchise it and they have no business being a franchisor. They see dollar signs and royalties, but they don't think about how they're going to have to show up and grow to serve people whose life savings is invested in their dream. And so, like, I stand on the biggest soapbox to say, a lot of people will call me and say, oh, I'd love to franchise my business. And I'm like, why? Don't. And they're like, wait
Yeah.
a minute. Don't you make a living helping, franchises grow? Yeah, because I want to help a certain caliber of a franchise, not just every Tom, Dick, and Harry who pays an attorney and becomes a franchisor. And I don't want your life savings invested in those companies either, right? The vast majority of them are never going to make it to 100 units. 100 units is not a national brand. So if
Right.
you're buying a franchise because you love I want brand value, Kim. I want to someday sell this for, like a Planet Fitness multiple. I have friends at Planet who cashed out for 8 times their EBITDA. True
Hmm.
statement. Like Kim's Gym's not going to cash out for 8 EBITDA. Why did Planet Fitness? Because there's a peak moment when everybody knows what Planet Fitness stands for. That consumer recognition is money, right? So when you go to sell your most established clubs and the brand is at this peak moment, you see investors cashing out for these big fat multiples. So if that's you and that's what your plan is to build and scale and sell, right? Well, you need the franchisor to actually get this brand recognition awareness. So if 97% will never even get to 100 units, that's not a national brand.
Right.
500 units is a national brand, is where the national brand starts to become a thing where we start driving around our communities and go, oh my gosh, what is this thing? I see it popping up everywhere. That's at about 500 units. So if most of them won't even get to 100 units, why is it worth your time? So the vast majority of companies I work with get to 100 units in the first year or two. That's 30 people who all invest in a 3-store or 3-territory deal. And so, there's you have to know how to help people see the vision when you're an emerging franchisor to want to take a risk and buy more than one. And that comes from experienced leadership. The other thing, Gary, is these experienced leadership knows we're not going to survive off of royalties, which is why 100 units is the marker, because about 100 units is the stabilizing point for most franchisors, where they will have enough stores open and producing enough revenue that royalty stream can pay all the franchisors' bills. So if you don't get to 100 units, how is the franchise funded?
Right.
And franchisors who think, well, I'm going to live off a franchise fee, that's a joke. That means they're total rookies, right? Because the franchise fee should be invested before they even recruit the franchisee. It pays a fee to a consultant. It pays a development person's fee. It pays for trade shows. So experienced franchisors have experience. They have deep pockets from private equity or deep, very profitable corporate stores. They are open in multiple markets. It's not just one store and I franchised it, or 2 stores in the same market and I franchise it. You see my eye roll? Big fat red flag. You don't need to be the guinea pig. There's enough solid franchisors out there that you may love it, but let's just let it brew. Let's let somebody else be the guinea pig and invest their life savings and go through that hard learning curve with the franchisor. Let's put your money into something that has a little bit stronger of a track record, a little bit greater chance of being successful, so that you, as a first-time business owner, also have a greater chance of being successful in loving franchising and want to come back. And then once you're experienced in a young emerging franchisor like that, where it's riskier, maybe you have enough confidence and knowledge that you feel comfortable being that guinea pig, right?
Right. So, Kim, tell us what makes Kim Daly different as a franchise consultant as other ones that are out there?
A great question in 2025, Gary, because when I started this thing 23 years ago, there was probably like 100 franchise consultants, and now there's like probably more than 3,000 or 4,000. It's kind of a joke how many people are like, oh, I want to be a franchise consultant today. Again, a big eye roll from Kim Daly. But I would say it's time and experience, right? Like, I'm not on the sideline. I'm in the game. I've been in the game for 23 years. I've been through recessions. I've been through pandemics. I've seen all the things, but I'm also a business owner myself. And as I was telling you before we hit record, so even in my franchise consulting business, which is a franchise, I spent 8 years just spinning around in the average pack of my company, which is what most people do. They get into the franchise, they produce a financial result, and then even when you're trying to grow, you sort of always end up about the same year over year over year, and there's a reason for that. But then in my 9th year of business, I started dreaming a new dream. I started dreaming $1 million dream, and I dared to go for it. And I did a series of things, and 1 year later, in my 9th year, I grew by 350% in one 12-month period. Same system, same crappy economy from 2010 to 2011, same Kim Daly. Nothing external to me changed, and yet everything in my life and even history and franchise consulting at the time changed. So what changed? My mindset. how I thought, how I talked, and then how I executed. And this is why now, 13 years later, I've taken that history making year, I turned it into 6-month income, I turned it into quarterly income, I cut my hours in half. I've literally done every single thing I can think to do to keep growing in franchise consulting. This business is putty in my hands. If I can think it, I can achieve it. And I've now systematized what I do because I've learned the natural laws of success, and there are mathematical equations that govern success. Einstein said it and Jesus said it. And I've created a coaching academy to give back to the franchising industry so I can not only help people invest in the franchise, but to know what I know in the last 13 years. Because Gary, nobody invests in a franchise to be the C student. And yet so many people end up there and they're frustrated and they're tired and they're like, I'm not living the dream. I never found the freedom. And there's nobody in the entire franchising industry addressing that. But now there is, Kim Daly. And that's my coaching academy called the Z Suite. Instead of the C Suite, this is the Z Suite. And I can teach you how to absolutely move beyond that average performance. And so, like, I never begrudge where I was for 8 years because without that pain, it would have never found a way to do something different and create this legendary life and now a whole new business that I can offer my franchising industry.
So what's behind the name Z Suite?
Well, they're called franchisees, right? We're all franchisees. And so it's ZEE. We call each other Z's. We're all Z's. So instead of the C suite, it's the Z suite. It's where you come when you're a franchisee, not an executive in corporate America, and you want to level up your game. It's a high performance coaching academy, but it's not contradictory to what you're buying in a franchise. When you buy a franchise, you're buying strategy. You're buying tools, marketing, and technology, and you need all of that because doing that from scratch as an entrepreneur, costly, it's a lot of time and energy and effort. Don't need to do that. Buy the franchise, get the strategy, join the Z Suite, and get the mindset, which helps you really understand how success happens by mathematical equations. So there are books, they're not well-known books, but there are books that are written on the science of getting rich. And that's what I teach from, the science of getting rich. And I tell my students, where in all of business ownership has anybody ever offered you a guarantee? Nowhere. I'm not going to offer you a guarantee, but I'm going to teach you how to offer yourself a guarantee. I've done it, and that's why I speak with such passion and conviction about it. I've created my own economy. Nothing can take me down. I have confidence. I know exactly what to do when my business is off track. And that's what every single person who wants to own a business actually wants. So we think it's the money. And of course, money is a measure of success, but money is not what you're actually after. At some point, money is just money, right? What you're actually after is the sense of control. So I tell people, you could take all my money. It doesn't matter. I'm 100% confident I can reproduce it because I know how I do it. So that's what I'm kind of, quote, selling inside the Z Suite is that confidence that comes from knowledge of how wealth is actually built. It's not strategy. Money is not a piece of paper. Money is energy, and it comes from who you be, your identity. And so I work on internal factors like how people think. What is your money story? Did you grow up in a home where your parents told you money doesn't grow on trees? We can't afford it. How many times have you said that? When you open your bank account, how do you feel? When you pay a bill, how do you feel? Every single answer you give me tells you your money story. And if that money story is not, I love to pay other people's bills because that means they love to pay mine, that money does grow on trees because money is just energy and energy is everywhere and it's abundant. If you have any lack thoughts, you cannot build wealth and prosperity. You can't. It's absolutely against the laws of the universe. And this is what I teach. It's really fun. And when people see it, like what happens, Gary, is people struggle in their business and they come in after 1 or 2 classes, their minds are blown and they start writing testimonials. Their lives start changing. They just wake up and feel happier. It's really a life-giving business that I offer. And it's just like the greatest joy of mine. I have so much gratitude for the opportunity I've been given through franchising to get here in order to then give it back.
Right. Now, you have your podcast. So tell us about that podcast and how does that fit into everything else that you're doing?
Okay, so I actually have a YouTube channel and I have a podcast as well. But on my podcast, I interview franchisees. So I'm the mindset coach, I'm the franchisee coach. So I interview the best storytellers in franchising because a franchisor can tell you about their business, but who do you really want to hear from? You want to hear from the people who've invested in the business. Why
Sure.
did you buy a franchise? So I start at the why, what was happening in your life when you answered the call to franchising. And we take people through the human story of investing in the franchise. The business the person I'm interviewing is invested in is not important. It's the story. And then
Right.
I also interject a lot of coaching along the way, mindset coaching based on, things that come up through the conversation. And then I also have episodes where I'm just talking directly to my listeners on the mindset piece because it's a really big part to success. In my opinion, it's 80% of the success equation. You buy the franchise for 20. That's the strategy. And that's a very important, again, don't go be an entrepreneur. Like if somebody has figured out how to make money, pay the franchise fee, buy the tools, get the marketing, get the technology, buy the things, buy the relationship and the partnership so you're not out there on your own. But then partner that with a tuned in, tapped in, totally aligned mindset. And that's the winning formula. That's the difference between Kim with just a strategy for 8 years and then Kim with a strategy and a mindset for the last 13.
Yeah. I think so many times as business owners, we get in our own way.
Oh,
And
yeah.
and I think that that's
As
something that,
humans.
yeah, exactly, exactly. But but that's something you're helping these franchisees get out of their own way, and be able to grow in their mindset, like you said. Um, you covered a lot of stuff. What have I not asked you wish I had? We could go on for hours, but
I would say, how do I get paid? I did mention earlier that my service is free. So I don't work for free, but you never pay me. I'm paid like a recruiter by the franchisors to be your franchise consultant. When you come to the Z Suite, you will pay because personal development is an investment in you.
Mhm.
And where you put your money is your treasure, and where you put your treasure, there your heart will be. And so you will pay for personal development in the Z Suite, but you do not pay for my services to help you invest in a franchise.
Great. Kim, if people like what they're hearing here, where can they find you? Where can they find your podcast? Where can they find Z Suite? Where can they find you as a franchise consultant?
Go right to my hub at thedalycoach.com. That's DALY, the Daily Coach. But I'm on all the socials. I have a massive presence on YouTube, so you can head over there. But again, just look at the Daily Coach anywhere and you'll find me.
Great. Kim, really appreciate your time today. Enjoyed our conversation.
Thank you, Gary. A pleasure to be here.
Thank you, guys. This week, our guest was Kim Daly, who's the Daily Coach, and I'll see you guys next week.